Comparing the unknown to the known, like picturing the brain as a computer, creates a vulnerability, the faulty analogy. It happens when you assume things sharing one trait must share other important traits, ignoring the insignificance of their similarities and the significance of their differences. In logic, a good argument requires acceptable premises. An analogy built on an unwarranted assumption fails this test. The connection between the two items simply isn't strong enough to support the conclusion being drawn. Even a well-constructed analogy is only suggestive. It can point you in the right direction, but it is never definitive proof on its own. Without hard external evidence to anchor your claim, building an argument entirely on an analogy leaves it completely vulnerable to collapse. Some argue for open book exams by comparing a student testing to a psychiatrist using a diagnostic manual. Both look up information, but a test evaluates baseline knowledge. The psychiatrist's baseline knowledge was already established. The manual simply assists their expertise. Pointing out a shared, trivial trait cannot bridge the logical gap between two situations with completely different underlying purposes. Comparing a lifelong marriage to eating a single food or listening to one song is a strained analogy. Unvarying food or music becomes boring, but a human being constantly evolves. An exclusive relationship involves complex emotions, shared experiences, and mutual growth. Analogical arguments fail completely when they reduce profound human complexities into overly simplistic, rigid categories. Compare cigarette smoking to ingesting arsenic. Both cause death, so some conclude you should avoid both equally. Pause the video. What's the significant difference? Arsenic causes an immediate, steep drop-off to death. Smoking causes a gradual, statistical decline. Even when the ultimate outcome is similar, the radically different causal mechanisms make the analogy structurally invalid as a standalone argument. When you encounter a faulty analogy in a discussion, you need actionable ways to dismantle it. There are two highly effective strategies you can use. The first is the counter-analogy. You offer a different comparison that supports the exact opposite conclusion. For the marriage debate, you could argue that a lifelong partner is like an old friend or a familiar, comfortable setting, something whose dependability brings lasting joy, rather than boredom. The second strategy is to demand evidence. You explicitly point out that the resemblance between the two cases is trivial. Because the comparison is weak, you force your opponent to provide hard, independent facts to support their claim. This brings us to a clear framework. The faulty analogy assumes shared traits mean complete similarity. It relies on the structural flaw of an unwarranted assumption, and you fix it by deploying a counter-analogy or demanding concrete evidence. Analogies are excellent tools for teaching, explaining, and illustrating complex ideas, but they are never logically sufficient for proving a claim.